former Labour MP, Rosie Duffield, has said she was almost single-handedly bullied out of the party by Sir Keir Starmer. The now independent Canterbury MP quit the Labour Party last September in an anti-sleaze protest over the leadership accepting freebies. So what do her claims say about the current state of British politics? Let's see what my panel make of this. I still have former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib, and founder of Turn Left Media, Curtis Daly. Ben, I'm going to come to you first on the Rosie story. Rosie is one of the few, personally, I think, MPs that has principles, and she has stuck to her principles. And I found it astonishing. She was talking at a women's festival in Alloa in Scotland. She said, "I never thought the party that's supposed to support women would like me, who was a Unison Union member, a teaching assistant and a single mum on benefits. I never thought I'd be fighting barristers who run our party. I'm looking at a man who was a millionaire barrister who almost single-handedly bullied me out of the Labour Party, a working woman." Very strong words from Rosie there. She doesn't actually beat about the bush on this subject. What do you make of what she said?
Yeah, very strong words, and I think they probably signify a greater sickness in our parliamentary system. You know, we have effectively a two-party representative democracy, and if that's what you have, which is what we have, then your democracy is only as good as the two parties from which we can choose. And it then comes down to how those parties make their policies and where they find their people. And it seems to me that over the last 30 or 40 years, the kind of drift that we've got with ever-increasing state intervention, more control, etc., has also manifested itself through our parliamentary system. And members of parliament basically have to toe the line, even on the most minor of issues, or they face the kind of fate that Rosie Duffield, or may I say Rupert Lowe, has recently faced. And what we need in Parliament are brave, independent thinkers who put the country and their constituents first and are fearless in the way that they express themselves. And the parliamentary party system actually works in some opposition to that. Now, you obviously have to have coherency across a party to be able to govern, and that there should be a healthy tension. But the tension at the moment, I think, favours the parties too much. And it's also why, I think, there are other reasons, but it's also why I think we've had a kind of constitutional crisis in this country ever since 2016, since we voted to leave the EU, because we've had a parliament full of people who've been opposed to what the people wanted. And unless Parliament comes into equal sort of footing, you know, in lockstep with the people, you will find this kind of turmoil. So Rosie is finding herself on the wrong end of a parliamentary party that effectively isn't speaking for her constituency.
What do you think of what Rosie's had to say? I mean, there are very strong words about a Labour Party that are supposed to be for the working people, and we were told...
Well, they haven't been now for a very long time, have they?
We were told constantly that's how they won the election, supposedly, for the working people.
They didn't win the election. The Conservatives lost the election.
Yeah. I completely agree. Yeah. 100%.
You know, there's this talk about how bad Jeremy Corbyn was, yet Keir Starmer got less votes than both 2017, 2019. 9.3 million votes. That is not it's a loveless landslide. It's not confidence in the Labour Party. But this is Keir Starmer's modus operandi. There was a line we used to say, democratise the Labour Party to democratise Britain. And you are actually right. We are only governed by our best political parties. Currently, we have top-down politics, and Keir Starmer is acting like an authoritarian leader. Now, I could have said this years ago, and I did, and a lot of people who support Labour were thinking, no, he'll be more left-wing in government. OK, then. And this is why you're seeing candidates, not just Rosie Duffield, you're seeing Diane Abbott was in trouble, John McDonnell, Salman Begum, Zara Sultana, who still doesn't have the whip back because they dared disagree. And what did they disagree on? Well, for John McDonnell and Zara Sultana, they said, we don't think we should keep children in poverty. We want to scrap the two-child benefit cap. Now, a Labour Prime Minister to say, we're going to remove the whip then, that is not democracy. So we need to have political parties that have more democracy. Would you agree with Rosie, what she said, that Keir Starmer is basically a bully? I don't know him personally, maybe. I mean, that's her...
The examples you've given of MPs would make you think that...
Probably. I mean, look, she knows him, she's met him. I don't know if he's a bully or not, but...
He's a pretty awful person.
I don't like him. I think he's a terrible leader, terrible prime minister. But I want to get back to the real issue, which is we need to have more democratic accountability in political parties. There was a move over the last 5 years to move the Labour Party to that, and then Keir Starmer, what has he done? He's ripped up all these democratic gains the party had, and now he's imposing candidates that look just like him. And again, I don't particularly like Rosie Duffield's politics. I'm not here to discuss that. I am here to discuss the fact that Starmer does have a kind of iron grip on the party, and that is bad for Britain. It's not just bad for the Labour Party, it's bad for the democracy, in this country.
Ben, just coming back to you on this situation, I mean, I've also been told by other female MPs, not Rosie, I hasten to add, that politics, especially for women, is getting worse. It is like a bear pit now in there, and it takes a certain toughie to actually be in any political party at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree that democracy is being hijacked at the moment, and I'll come back to the point you make on women. But more generally, Keir Starmer, undoubtedly in my mind, I've never met him, is a bad man. He's a man that stands in opposition to the British people. He's a man that would do away with democracy because actually he wants to hand power to Brussels. That's what he wants to do. He would have overturned the will of the British people at the last election. So for me, he is basically anti-British. And if you're anti-British, you're anti the democracy within our country. So it stands to reason that he would find democracy within his own party an affront. He would want to control it so he can deliver his agenda.
I wouldn't want to say anti-British. Definitely his interests are not in the heart of the country, but anti-British could be a bit... I think it's a bit too far to say that. Now, in terms of the EU, in terms of the EU, Starmer went from a pro-Remainer in order to try and destroy Jeremy Corbyn's leadership because he knew that was a wedge issue, and now he's saying he sort of backs Brexit. He is not a principled person. He's a weather vane. So I don't think that he wants to give power to Brussels because he doesn't believe in anything. He will do what he thinks is the popular thing. Clearly, though, his advisors aren't very good because he seems to be doing the things that are not popular. So anti-British, I wouldn't say. A terrible prime minister, absolutely.
Let Ben come back.
I think he's absolutely anti-British. I think anyone who wishes to hand power, and I wasn't aware that he now claims to be a Brexiteer. That's new to me. But he said in September 2023 in Montreal, when he thought he was off camera, he said, if I were to become the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, I would align us so closely with the European Union that people wouldn't be able to discern whether or not we were members. And that, to me, is taking the country in a regulatory and governance direction which is against the national interest. What we need to start doing, and we need to start doing it urgently, is making policies for the United Kingdom and for the people of the United Kingdom. You know, all the discussions we've had today can all find their root problems in governance that hasn't been delivered for the British people.
Okay.
Would you scrap big funding for parties and corporate funding? So, like, the Labour Party took millions of pounds from corporations, the Tories and Reform. Nigel Farage shacked up with Elon Musk. Would you scrap those big funding into political parties?
We don't have time for reply.